Hey folks, my name's Kevin and it's time for a little bit more knife nerdery, and I am super fortunate to get to see this today because this is a freaking Holt Morpheus. And unfortunately for me, it's not mine. I don't even get to keep it for more than like a day because I am proxying this for my friend Casper who lives in Norway. Casper's a really cool guy. I have bought knives off him before. I have sent proxied knives to him before. We did like a swap-a-roo kind of thing at one point. And more importantly, he makes handmade wooden spoons and bowls and spatulas and stuff like that. He's just a really awesome guy. And he's one of the people I've enjoyed most talking to in this community. And so I'm absolutely happy to do things like this, proxy for him over in Norway. Now, this right here is me ripping off a shipping label. This is how the box came to me, and that makes me kind of nervous. So we are going to open this up and hopefully everything is okay inside. Okay, so happy to see that nothing is missing. What do we have here? These are the stickers that it came with. And it was nice to see that the person who shipped this used some cardstock to keep those nice and crisp and safe. Oof, those are gorgeous. And then now we have the pouch. So if you've seen my unboxing video for this is my Holt Haptic, the first one that I got. It came in a red box. They had a shortage of that. It took them like 8-10 months to get the lead time on that. And so if you see the unboxing I don't think I actually did an unboxing. I don't know. I actually have a second one of these, and it's on loan right now to Marco at Knives of the Round Table. So shout out to him. Go check out his channel. And that one was from the era where they just didn't have boxes. So they discounted the price for the cost of the box, all this kind of stuff. It's kind of weird. But it just came in like bubble wrap. And I wish I actually had the other one on me right now because the other one is a completely nude one, and that's the same colorway as here. But at some point, they moved away from using those boxes and made these incredibly cool pouches. And now, it's not uncommon for knives to come in pouches, but this pouch is just so obviously a tier above every other pouch I have ever handled. And so this is really cool to see. Okay, let's open this up. Okay, so here we have the little tool. This is going to be a very small L-shaped Allen key, or maybe a hex wrench. Yeah, 0.035 hex wrench for doing the adjustable detent system. Here is your Solenko RFID COA card. You tap that in order to get it, but this is the thing. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Oh yeah, that is beautiful. You know, I am totally blanking right now on what this is called. I think this milling pattern is called their like hills milling pattern, something like that. It's supposed to look like the cascading mountainside. I'm totally blanking on the name of it. Oof. Oh yeah, that is stunning. Okay, it's in M390. I have the marking right there. That's the same steel that's on this one, but my nude haptic is in S90V. Man, these are tremendously similar designs here. You can see that when they went from the Spectre to the Haptic, that they kind of shrunk things down. They went from the Haptic to the Morpheus. They basically kept the exact same dimensions. In fact, they don't have the dimensions listed anywhere on their website. I'll talk about that in a little sec. It kind of bugs me how they're doing things right now. I forgot to actually mention it later, so here's just a little interjection. Yeah, the way that Holt is operating right now confuses me, and honestly, I just find it kind of annoying. They don't seem to be using their website anymore. They haven't even posted the Morpheus on there. There's no evidence that the Morpheus exists, and they've been making the Morpheus for months already. And they aren't using it for sales anymore. They're basically operating entirely out of their Facebook group. And I don't really get it. Like that's where I had to look for the specs for this. Is where they're doing sales as these kind of random periodic drops. And I get that they don't have an incentive to behave differently because those drops still sell out instantly. Like they're still having all of the success they need to as a company. But from my perspective, the fact that they are operating basically their entire business exclusively through a Facebook group that you have to have a Facebook account to be even a member of, because it's a group you have to request to join. So it's not even public, so you can just browse anonymously. Like that I think that sucks. But on the specs that they listed for this on the Facebook group, when they announced it, they're nearly identical. Like this is listed as 3.24 inch blade, and this one's listed as 3.25. This one's listed as 7.4 inches overall. This is listed as 7.5 overall. Like, and they're both listed as the exact same thickness. And if you look at the way that these are effectively the exact same shape and size and everything like that. So it's going to be a matter of what blade shape do you want. And this is the right time to finally talk and feel this. God, I love the action on these things. And look at that blade. Let me real quick wipe this off. Oh, yeah. Okay. So what you basically can pick with these is, do you want a sheep foot or do you want a draw point? And personally, I like the aesthetic of this so much more than the Spectre. I know that is blasphemous to some people. Some people think the Spectre is the most beautiful knife ever made. But to me, I love the size and shape of the Haptic, and so if I were to ever get a drop point from Holt, I would definitely go for the Morpheus over the Haptic. For other reasons too, the Morpheus over the Spectre. The other reasons too, the Spectre is kind of ridiculously hype priced at the moment. Oh my God. Okay, so another reason why I wish I had my other one of these is they have different action. You can see that they both do this just free fall guillotine, but this one has always been a little bit slower, and the totally nude one that I have is like an absolute immediate drop monster, and you can see that they're doing the exact same thing here. Oh my goodness, that is like wildly fast. Wow. And also I love that they make different sounds, because first of all, the sounds on these on Holts in general is one of the things that just is so fun. Oh my God, it's like musical. Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's got such a good snap. Okay, so a lot to look at here. So one of the things that does bug me about the Morphei, I don't know how you're supposed to correctly pluralize this, is from what I've seen, they aren't tying the clips in thematically the same way. And so what I'm talking about is, if you look over here, the clip on this, the milling here lines up perfectly with the milling underneath. And now this, of course, is straight lines, but you can see that this is going down. And if I had it, maybe I might have, I don't remember if I have a good picture of it or not. I'll pop in a picture if I do, of the milling on the other one. So this is the Sea Breeze wave pattern, and the other one I had is the Quill wave pattern, or milling pattern. And that one also, it lines up just the right way. This, frustratingly, doesn't line up. They just didn't attempt. And I get that this particular milling pattern has really broad strokes at the bottom down here, and instead of the very fine lines like you'll see over there. And so it might be difficult for them to do that in a way that'd still be pleasant, because they'd be pretty broad. But it just kind of makes me a little bit bummed that they don't do that. The one thing I do like is that this backspacer is doing the same thing you'll see over here. So on this, the backspacer extends into the handle. You can see that these chevrons right here are actually completed in these little lobes in the handle. And that's such a delightful, just small detail that shows mastery of machining. For that to line up so perfectly and to be so incredibly seamless and flush takes a lot of effort. And what's interesting is they didn't always do this on the Haptics. They introduced this on the Haptics, but they introduced it in the time frame between when my nude one, which was made in February of 2021, I don't remember, February, and this one was made in April. And because the version I have on my nude one has a different backspacer here where they've switched to these full chevrons rather than the kind of like expanding chevron pattern that they had, but they didn't yet extend it into the handles. And over here, they are doing that same thing where they are extending it fully into the handle and yet wrapping that around. You can see that on one of the differences between these knives is that the backspacer comes very far down, and that's to accommodate the fact that this blade shape permits them to wrap around. Like this has to come narrow, shorter like this because it's that straight blade. And it's just, oh, it's such a good little detail. Another difference you'll notice is that the backspacer starts further back, and that's a consequence of the fact that it wraps up around like this. On the Haptic, because the blade shape itself comes down so flat, the backspacer is really only this top sliver of the handle. On the Morpheus, because it extends all the way down like this to meet it, it's actually taking up this entire back kind of corner wedge. And so the reason why they didn't leave it in the same spot and just extend it further is because that would add more metal and change the overall weight and balance of the knife. Instead, they took roughly the same amount of metal and just shifted the entire thing this way. One of the consequences of that, though, is that this entire knife extends further down right here and allows them to put the clip further back. If we look at the way that these two knives line up, yeah, there's that corner down there. So they're able to shift it downward. If you look at where the pocket clip sits right here on the Haptic, your pocket, like the deepest your pocket will go is right there, sitting close to, but still in front of this back screw. If you look at the same spot on the Morpheus, it's right lined up with the screw. And since those screws themselves are in the exact same spot relative to the overall handle shape, it means that the Morpheus will sit a full 1/8 of an inch deeper in your pocket. As far as the shapes of these, it never really mattered that this was a chevron. That doesn't really echo anything else on the knife. And so the fact that these are straight lines kind of looks almost like a gear pattern. Again, doesn't really tie into anything else, but it doesn't really matter. It looks great. And you can also see that there's these other little tiny indentations right there. It's just overall a really cool looking milling pattern that they put right there. That's just so neat. The flipper tabs on these sure do look similar. This one looks to be leaning back ever so slightly. So some people don't like the Haptic flipper tab because of the fact that it comes up so straight right here that you kind of end up easily pushing on this corner. I personally love the Haptic flipper tab. I think it's very, very functional. But if you try to do this as a push button and you're trying to push down, it is kind of pushing on that corner. And so I think one of the things that's going on here, yeah, you can definitely look at, yeah, you can definitely see it. This is leaning down at a more of an angle. And so I suspect that to do a push button is more comfortable. Yeah, it's just more comfortable. Yeah, this is a more pleasant flipper tab for sure. It's a subtle change, but it really does make a difference. The jimping on these is always really nice. It's nice and crisp. So if you want to do it as a pull back just from traction alone, God, that's good. Wow. Man, it's so... it's hard to not just play with this in the video because it's just so dang good. The blade stock on these, I believe, is the exact same thickness, which means I think it's going to be 0.135 inches. You can see that on the Haptic, they've got this tall swedge here, and that swedge is not dropping below the grind line. I mean, it is at this very, very end, but effectively it's not. It's basically in line. And the result is it's not thinning out the blade. It does reduce traction in your cut because of the fact that there's less material up here if you're really pushing through cardboard, but it then fattens back out at the tip here to give you a nice spot. And so for me, the part of the reason why I'm not particularly hunting one of these is because I freaking love sheep's foot blade shapes. And this is a near quintessential sheep's foot. It's not like an absolute perfect definitional sheep's foot, but it's effectively the same. And so these with the little bit thicker spot right here for you to put your finger down, it just works so well in a utility cut. And so while a lot of people will want a drop point, it's a more universal, versatile blade, my personal cutting means I love this. You can see though that there's the full thickness of the blade right there. And so this remains full thickness into right here. And so if you're using this in a pinch cut, you have this a considerably just more comfortable spot to put your finger on the entire time is because if you look at the way, one of my only real complaints about the Haptic is they put this little nub right here. And I guess you could consider it an indexing point for your finger, but it does mean that if you ever land right on it, you're pushing on a little bump. And that's the only thing in the entire knife that I think is ergonomically not a great idea. This is still thick enough that it's like good to press on, but it is definitely going to be nicer to press on this. Let's see how the jimping is done. it looks like they have spaced it out a little bit more. If we look at the jimping here, this is a little bit more of like a pyramidal shape right there. And this looks to be just a little bit flatter at the top. Now let's see, how does that affect traction? The jimping on here is functional. It's good. It's not hard to slide over it if you're not putting on pressure, so it's not the kind of thing that's so sharp that it bites you. The jimping on here is, I would say, pretty similar. I'd say it's pretty similar in efficacy, which is to say that it's not like the most effective jimping of all time, but in a positive way. Like, I don't want it to be super duper grippy that's going to eat at my finger. It actually feels quite pleasant, but if you do put on pressure, in terms of how far it comes down, you can see that they've also extended it slightly. Now, is that going to matter in a grip? I think the fact that it extends about this much more means that it's probably not going to impact me in my particular hands and where I would put my thumb. If they were to extend it or put it down here, like you'll find in some of like Jesper Voxney's knives, that'd be something that'd be kind of fun to have in a pinch grip. Wow, this does feel really nice. One of the nice things about this handle shape that I really like is that this swell right here, this concave part right, that fits your finger. This is a great place in a pinch cut to rest your finger there. And it does feel very, very locked in. And I get that same feeling right here. This does immediately just feel good. Oh, wow, this really does feel nice in my hand. And the fact that this is dropping down, though, means that this blade is thinning out. And so this is actually, let's see if I can get that to focus. This is actually a very precise tip. You have a lot of meat right here, but look how thin that comes down. Ooh, that's delightful. So I would certainly not use, I mean, you're not going to, this is what, a table price, $850, $900 knife, something like that. You're not going to use this for prying anyway, but I definitely wouldn't, given how thin that is. But given how much meat is right here, I think that you're not going to have to worry about this blade bending or anything like that. Not that you would. This is a hollow grind like they always do, and man, I think they do such a nice hollow. Also such a nice finish. Their finish is one of my favorites here. You can see right there is my reflectivity, and because it's a hollow, it's upside down. And here, there I am again. Is there any difference there? I think this one is maybe a little bit more of a clear reflection, which would imply that it's a little bit less stonewashed. But man, it is just stunning. It's one of my absolute favorite blade finishes on any knife. How are other things? You can see that this plunge grind ends right at the top of this sharpening choil. So the plunge grind is the grind that takes you from the full thickness down to the thinnest behind the edge right here. And it's right where you'd want it to be. That is great. What else? This edge looks like it has a little bit of residue on it. But otherwise, man, it is like gleaming and looks sticky sharp. They do really, really nice edges. I was very impressed with the edge that's on mine over here and on the nude one I have as well. What else would I talk about? Oh, that's something actually I really do want to compare. Because I don't have them right now, but I noticed that the difference in the... one of the things, if you're not familiar with Holt, one of the things that they do is they use the same kind of ramped detent nub that Brian Nadeau of Sharp by Design invented. And so if you look right here, when we look, we don't have a detent ball. We have this little machined nub, and you can see there's a ramp on one end and that it is taller. And there's like this little plateau right there. And so the detent, instead of having a ball, you have this flat surface right there. Now, I noticed on comparing my nude one and this one, that the shape and positioning of these are different. This one is a bigger overall nub. It sticks up a little bit higher and it's further back from the edge. Now, I want to know, what is it like right here? Yeah, that looks pretty similar, but I do think it looks a little bit closer to the edge. I don't know. But you can see how this works. As you start to close it, you are intrinsically on that ramp and you push up that. And so if you do try to close this in the type of thing where you don't sufficiently clear, like right now I've sufficiently cleared, it's super easy and it's basically impossible to have trouble closing this because this lock bar is light enough, and the moment you start trying to push this, it's so effortlessly pushing up that ramp. Now, it was interesting comparing Holt's to Sharp by Designs. Actually, I have that. I might as well just show you right now. So this is the version that Brian Nadeau, well, this is the version that Riot does on the Brian Nadeau Mini Tempest. And so you can see that it is much shorter and much longer. And so the act of pushing up this ramp is like a longer process. You're on the ramp for a longer period of time, but it's a less effort per like unit of pushing distance because of the fact that that ramp is long and slender. The difference is that this lock bar here is a frame lock. Well, it's a bolster lock, but it's strong enough that it requires obviously more pressure to push against that bar. On the Holtz over here, I realize how long I've been zoomed in, but I think this is probably good for this. These lock bars are so lightweight, and that's how they're getting that incredibly free fall action, that trying to push up this, even though it's such a steep, abrupt ramp, they're able to make it so that it takes such little force to push up it, just because it takes such little force to pull this over. Let's finally zoom back out. And yeah, that very light lock bar pressure is exactly how they're getting this. Now, it does help that they are using a flattened nub up here, and that flattened surface can be polished off. And it just, when you have a flat surface, it's easier to reduce the coefficient of friction. When you have something like a detent ball, just the mere shape of it, the fact that all of the force is concentrated on one specific spot means that it's more likely to be digging into the blade as it goes, that whole like kind of wearing the detent path in. And so when you have a nub like this, that whole process is kind of moot, because that force is distributed across the entire space. And so the amount of the pressure is reduced. The amount of force per unit area of contact is reduced. And so it's easy for you to get this kind of drop shut action by having that flattened surface there and this really, really light thing. When I say it's easy, it's still tremendously impressive how they're doing this. It's easy in the sense that they're doing the right things from a physics perspective, but it's still a masterful execution to be able to get that to happen, because there are plenty of knives out there that have attempted to do this light lock bar thing and to try to get free fall, and vast majority of them can't do that. It is kind of bonkers. What else is there to talk about this? One thing I do notice right off the bat is that this is a lot flatter. It's a lot more of a flat slab. In fact, it might actually be a flat slab. And so if you look at this, you can see that there is this like chamfer here. This entire line is at an angle. And then this part here itself is flat. Like there's not curvature to this. But the fact that this entire part is curved here and the fact that there is this kind of step down here makes the thing feel 3D contoured in this direction, even though it is just perfectly straight up and down for the vast majority of it. It bumps up and then has this curve down, but the entire thing feels a little bit more 3D contoured. This, by comparison, is a flat slab. This is as far as I can tell, I could be wrong. If someone knows better, correct me, but this appears to be a perfectly flat surface this entire way. And so when I'm holding it, like this up here, my finger rolls off this in a way that it feels a little bit more, I don't know if I'm gonna go as far as to say like it feels more ergonomic, but it just feels more contour. It just feels more kind of rounded into my hand. And this feels ever so slightly more of just like a flat slab. And so, for example, if you look up here, they're doing these corners pretty differently. Like this one has a flat and then a probably looks something about like maybe a 40-degree angle right here, 45-degree angle, and then that surface. This one has a smaller flat right here, then a much larger flat, and then that. And so what you get is these kind of like wider panels. And so the fact that it's smaller kind of makes it feel radius. This feels a little bit more in the direction of rounded, because that smaller chamfer kind of blurs together as like a rounding. This feels like 3 distinct chamfers. And so, yeah, it just feels different in hand. I would say that this feels more like a hard corner. And I don't mean it in a bad way, because actually that kind of shaping like this gives you really, really good indexing in your hand. So what I'm talking about there is when you're holding it, you feel very confident and comfortable that you're holding it the right way. There's no ambiguity in your hand about how this is. And sometimes when you have an overly I wouldn't call the haptic overly contoured, but sometimes when you have an overly contoured handle, it's hard to immediately know if you have it like this versus like that versus like that. It's just little changes in this and will affect where your blade is lining up and how your tip is oriented. And in this one, with the way that this is, the flat like this, you never have any ambiguity. You immediately can tell how this is being held in your hand. And if you're holding it in any different way, you'll be able to tell. But I'm making it sound like it maybe like won't work in other grips or something like that, but you'll just be able to tell that how it's positioned in your hand. That feels nice. How else do people hold these? Like I only ever really hold these things in a pinch grip like this, or in a kind of saber grip or somewhat of a hammer grip. And I've always thought that their handle feels really nice. I've heard some people say that the way that this comes down right there feels a little bit hollow to them, but I don't have that problem whatsoever. There is a difference to the back of this, but the curve itself isn't particularly different. It's different down here. And I'd be surprised. I think that initial angle is the same. Yeah, what's different there, that initial angle appears to be the same. What's different there is that this one just has a little bit more of a part sticking out. It just sticks out the bottom. And so when it comes to like how this fits in the back of your palm in a pinch grip like that, it's the exact same angle right there as far as I can tell. And so yeah, across the board, I think the big difference really does come down to just which blade shape you want. So do I want one of these? I mean, yeah, absolutely. But do I want one enough to actually get one? Because the reality is, oh man, I have 2 of these now. And I got this one originally because it was the only thing I could get I lucked into one of the drops. And so I got like the version that didn't have anodized clips in hardware because I didn't want them to show scratches. But even as is, I almost never use this. I never take this out of the house. I use this for really light duty stuff. I really baby this thing. And the reason is because it has this extremely gorgeous ano. It doesn't show up super well on camera, but this is the kind of hidden secret blurple where it's very vivid blue in this direction, but at an angle, it becomes a very vivid purple. And so the fact that I don't want to scratch the ano and everything like that means that I just don't use this as a full on true, like, don't think twice about it user. And so I was always hunting. Even when I got this, what I wanted was a nude. And so I got the nude. And now that one I actually use. It's not like I do any kind of hard work. I'm not doing anything abusive. But that's one that I actually do carry around and don't think twice about trying to use on something. And it works so dang well. And this type of blade shape works so dang well. And so if I were to get one of these, I would want it to be that same kind of user thing, because I keep this around because of how freaking gorgeous it is. And it is my example of a looking at knife that is just so beautiful and such a good example of anodization and milling. But if I were to actually buy one of these, I'd want so badly for it to be something that I would use without hesitation. And this kind of nude pattern like that is really, really the one I would go for. I do really like this milling pattern a lot. They have a couple other ones that I like. But yeah, I think this is probably the perfect version for me. I'm confident that it's the perfect version for Casper. I don't know if this is going to be the perfect knife for him. I don't know if this is going to stick around. He's very, very particular, but I do know that as Morphei go, this is the one that would be definitely the most him, and it is definitely the most me as well. Okay, I don't know what else I would say about this. Oh, you know what? I didn't look at the inside. The milling is the same. Okay, so they have the same kind of milling inside. Let me get something to reflect back up. If we look here, you can see that it is one really big pocket this entire way. But what's nuts is that they do, the milling they do on the inside, man, I don't think I can be able to show it to you on this video. I'll have to pop in a picture, but what the milling they do on the inside of the knife is every bit as gorgeous as the milling they do on the outside. It's super precise micro milling, and from the look of it, the milling in here is the same as on the haptics, and so I'll just use a photo I have from that. The weights feel identical to me, and they're listed as the same. Like this is listed as 3.7 ounces, and this is 3.6, and so they're the same. I don't know what else I'd say. Yeah, okay, at the end of the day, this thing is freaking amazing. If you have a haptic and you want a drop point version of it, try for one of these. I might end up getting one just because how freaking cool it is, but because I am a sheep's foot person, I'll probably just stick with the haptic. And I've said that like 6 times in this video, so I don't need to keep saying that. God, the action is good. They've really dialed that really, really well. Okay. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.